Hey, this is Roy Khan, and you're listening to Monsters, Madness, and Magic. See you guys.
Just to get things started here, so we have a platform to jump from. Uh, Take us back in time. You're a youngster. Are you a book reader, fort builder, troublemaker, or all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, I had a short period where I was really opposing to teachers and parents and all that. But I think I was a pretty good kid, and I read a lot, and I had my periods of opposing authorities and everything that stood in my way.
So, did you have a type of genre of books that you lean towards, or maybe a writer, favorite stories, maybe?
Well, there's this Norwegian writer his name is Knut Hamsun, which I read quite early. I got into quite early. I mean, I've had so many authors that I've read that I can't really. There's not really one that I would choose over the other, but that's one of them.
Right. Were you? Would you say you were a fantasy guy or a horror guy, or did you lean more towards one or the other?
No, I read that too. No, more like I don't know what you would call that genre. Really, it's more like they're. I mean, Knut Hamsun is he's one of Norway's most famous writers, and he wrote about people growing up in little villages along the coast, and I mean not really the type of literature that you'd expect a 15-year-old to read, but for some reason I really fell in love with those images he created in his writing. But I mean, I've had periods where I read crime novels only. These days, I read a lot of not really novels, but like fact books. I'm reading Super Freakonomics right now, which is like the New York Times bestseller thing on weird ways of looking at economics and statistics. But I mean, these things go in waves.
So, Roy, what about your parents? Were either of them musically inclined at all?
Not really. No. Well, well, I have uh, my father used to pick up the guitar and play. He's from Thailand, right? And he'd play these Thai songs, but he can't sing to save his life. And my mom had a period where she tried to learn the violin, also quite traumatic. So not really, no. But my grandpa was really into music. Music was his life. So I guess that's the only place I see that coming from.
Mm. Now, was he a singer? Did he play an instrument?
No, he played the accordion.
Mm.
Like he liked to just sit and play his old accordion songs, and he also wrote some music himself.
Gotcha. Did you ever play an instrument, or were you always just focused on the voice?
Oh, I started off playing the clarinet in the school choir, and then when I was 11, 12, I started playing the piano. At the age of 35, I picked the guitar up. So I guess if you have I mean whatever instrument you want to look into, having a certain musical understanding is helpful. So I guess if you really go at it, you could learn probably not any instrument like the violin, for example, is extraordinarily difficult to learn. I guess having that interest and having that in my blood is helpful. Try to learn new instruments.
So, what records were spinning around your house when you were growing up? What sort of music did your parents play?
Ah, Pink Floyd, Bee Gees, ABBA, Beatles, Elvis Presley. That was probably my first, big idols somehow. But yeah, the first song I ever remember hearing was Yesterday, the Beatles.
Roy, this is something I like to ask everyone, just because you never know. What scared you as a kid?
Hmm. I don't know, quite a bit, I guess, but it's not really something that jumps out as a big. I mean, my mom and dad were they were at the brink of divorce, like when I got older. So that was something that I remember as being not so pleasant. But so well, and they eventually got divorced. But Yeah, no, I don't know. I had a pretty fearless childhood, I'd say.
That's
I was
good.
lucky. Yeah, I had a good childhood. Yeah.
So, at what age do you realize that you have a great singing voice? Did someone else mention it to you? Did your parents notice?
Yeah, no, no. Well, I started singing. I mean, when I totally fell in love with Aha when they came out in the mid '80s, and I started singing, these songs. And Morton Harkett has this high shiny voice, and I discovered that I could do that same type of falsetto, and I could do "Take on Me," which was like goes from way down there and all the way up to that high note, and somehow I could do that. And I guess the fascination for singing was discovered at that point. But it wasn't until and from then on, I sang in the shower, even at school. And it was actually at school one time after uh, like around the football or something that I sang alone. The Heart song.
Yeah.
I sang that song in the shower, and this guy came up to me and said, "Hey, I mean, you gotta." And then at the in the showers where we, in a wardrobe, we had these tall ceilings and concrete walls, so it was the reverb was really nice. So I just loved standing there singing. And this guy heard me, and his brother, I think, had or somebody he knew, anyways, had a punk band, and they were looking for a singer. So uh, my first audition was for a punk band, and but that was it. I was there for testing out, and it was a cool band, but punk wasn't really my genre. I started listening to metal by then, and yeah, that just wasn't my thing.
Right.
But that's how it started, and via him again, or via that band, I got into this top 40 band, and we played around the area where I lived for a couple of years. After that, I went to this musical school where a friend of the guys in Conception also went, and he tipped them about me after that year was over, and that's how I got into Conception. I auditioned for them, and yeah, that was that.
Gotcha. So, do you recall like your very first time on stage as a vocalist? Very first time, did it go off without a hiccup?
The very first, no, I don't. The very first time, no, I don't. I
Do you
mean,
think?
that must have been with that top 40 band, if you could call that a stage. I mean, playing in front of drunk people, dancing and yelling and drinking, but it was it was a really good, learning experience because it was kind of low key, and yeah, no, I liked it.
Uh,
So I got into interacting, moving on stage, and interacting with people, and I definitely discovered that I liked it.
hey, obviously you're good at it.
No,
so,
thanks.
so when you think back to formative films and TV shows that you grew up on, what comes to your mind initially?
Oh, TV shows. There was this what was it called? Century. There was this guy Zebulon. Uh, I'm not sure what it was called in English, but I think it was Century. It was this Western series
I'm not
with
familiar with it.
I think it was huge all over the world, and it was American. It must have been big in the U.S. too. Zeb McKayan, is that ringing a bell?
I'm gonna do a Google real quick. Well, when I search it, "How the West Was Won" comes up.
Yeah, that must be it
That
then.
must, yeah, that must be it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
So,
mean that, and I mean, like where I live, we had one channel, right? That's all we had, one TV channel. So we gathered, every Saturday evening, we sat down in front of the TV, and we watched whatever was on. So yeah, we had pizza or fondue, or had some good to eat. So those Saturdays they're good memories.
that's some good
Having that,
times.
yeah, yeah, movies, and no, yeah, I mean that was one of them. But
It's a Western guy, huh? You like Westerns in general?
yeah, good ones. Like with any other genre,
Yeah.
I like good movies in general. I mean, I'm really that goes for music and books and movies. I digest whatever. I could read a good review of a book and I'll try it out. Might not like it, of course, and then I'll just lay it off. But I'm pretty much, yeah. It's I guess my taste in art is quite varied.
So I know you studied opera for years. How did that develop your voice, and did it help you sort of understand the machinations behind it? I guess.
Hmm. Yeah, I did. After that school that I told you about, I did 2.5 years maybe together with a really famous like opera diva here in Norway. She was retired, but she was taking a few students. Now this was before I joined Conception. So I did that for like a year and a half, and then I joined Conception. But after another half year, she told me that you gotta make a choice here because I can hear that you're doing other stuff at the same time here. And then I told her that I joined a rock band, and she didn't really want to waste her time on somebody that wasn't like aiming specifically at the opera scene. So I made that choice and went for metal.
Have you spoken with her since?
No, 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 I haven't. I mean, she died a few years ago.
Oh, sorry to hear
And
that.
but as to to answer your question fully, I definitely learned some basic techniques and warm up techniques and some basic principles as to what really matters when you sing. Also about expression and the fact that the words you sing they mean something. Otherwise you could just do la la la, right? So both the teacher at that school that I mentioned and this retired opera diva, they both were very focused on the connection between music and lyrics,
Hmm.
which I like, because the written word had always been something that I had a relation to, so kind of made sense to me.
As someone who's been around for a long time at this point, what would you say is what's a common mistake you see a young vocalist coming into the scene make?
I don't really know. I mean, it's hard to, first of all, it's really hard to tell whether somebody is doing a mistake because, I mean, voice is very, very personal. So I can hear somebody like growl or scream at the top of their lungs where they crack up nicely, and I'll think, God, that guy must be bleeding after that. But some people that comes really natural. So it's really hard to tell.
So Camelot, you joined Camelot in '97. How did that come about?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I think '97. If I'm wrong, please
yeah,
correct
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. 97. Well, that was a little bit after Conception had, been put on ice, and Thomas read about that, uh, or he heard about it. I mean, we were on the same label, so he managed to get my dad's phone number. There's not really that many people with that last name in Norway, so he managed to get my dad's phone number, and he gave my phone number to Thomas, and he called me in the car. That was the first. That was on my first cell phone. Like in the beginning, like yeah, '97. And that's when I got my first cell phone. So I remember picking it up in the middle of the. I parked the car and picked the phone up between Oslo and Elverum, where I lived at the time, and say, "Hey, it's Thomas Youngblood from." I thought he said Tampax, Florida. I never heard about Tampa. And he said that, yeah, we got this record going, and our singer, he doesn't really want to go abroad, and we want to try to make it internationally. So, are you in for that? I'd never been to the U.S. before, and they paid me pretty well. So, I thought, yeah, why not? Went over and met the guys, and that was a cool experience. I didn't take part in much of the writing of that material, but me and Tom made one song together, like from scratch. I did a couple of lyrics on the Siege Perilous album, but me and Tom made a song for scratch from scratch for the Japanese bonus track.
Mm.
That was the first song we wrote together. We just wrote it in the studio with a keyboard and a guitar, and yeah, I mean that whole thing was a really cool experience. And we thought, hey, we've got to look into maybe trying to work out some more, and the rest is history.
So that was your first trip to the U.S. What were your first impressions of the U.S.? Was it a big culture shock initially?
Not really. I mean, that if there's one country that we get to see a lot on TV, it's definitely the U.S. So not really, but I mean, but it was really cool. I love the U.S. Love the U.S.
You ended up sharing a lot of the songwriting duties with Thomas. You're writing concept albums like the Black Halo, inspired by
Uh-huh.
Faust and such. How far were these concepts planned out? Because I know the Black Halo sort of continues from what was introduced in Epica. How
Uh-huh.
did that just happen that way, or did you guys
No, that
plan
was
it?
planned. That was
Mm.
planned. Yeah. So we prior to recording Epica, we had this plan for a double concept album. And we were looking for a concept, and I found this book in my shelf. It was actually my now wife's book about Faust. We tried to read the book. It's a really hard book to looked at that, and we read some summaries, and we figured this is something that we can project onto our own lives, and especially me as the lyricist. I really felt that that was something that could very nicely be used for a double concept album. But I mean, this is just loosely based
Yeah.
on that book. Some other things are recognizable, and some things are really very personal.
When it comes to writing lyrics, is it easier if it comes before or after the music?
I very seldomly write the lyrics first, very seldomly. So I'm not even sure I've ever written a song that actually, or a lyric that actually became a song. At least not entirely the way. Of course, I can take it and swap sentences and words around, and mold it to fit a song, but I never. It's almost always the other way around.
So you joined the band, and like you said initially, that first album you didn't help with much of the material. How do you wiggle your way in and then become one of the primary songwriters? Did Thomas sort of notice that you had a knack for it?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there were a couple of things that changed with at that time, and it was both me that came in. Casey was the new drummer, and Sasha and Miro came in and keep like Miro did a lot of the keyboards or orchestral arrangements on Fourth Legacy, right? And
Right.
Sasha is a really good producer that he can help you. He can really help you let your imagination be the limitation. And I can't remember. We just it went quite naturally. Both me and Tom figured that the two of us were a really good team. As to get a band up and going. And I mean, there's so many things that come into play when you want to build a band. Like there's songwriting, lyrics, image, the all the business elements that they're needed, luck, not the least, timing. So many things that need to fall in place at the right time.
And I just want to, to a lot of fans, Roy, live performances are everything. And you're one of the vocalists that comes up a lot.
Mhm.
When metal fans get together and I get together with my buddies, talk about best live vocalists. So is there anything special that you do in preparation, maybe vocal exercises or anything like that to stay on top?
Yeah, one thing that I always do is I make sure that I'm like really hydrated. So I've taken that a little bit too far a couple of times, but my favorite way of warming up is like 3 4 hours before the gig. I'll just sit in the tub and just drink water. And a couple of times I've drank so much water that I've gotten dizzy, and it wasn't until later that I found out that that's actually the first stage of your body shutting down. So like drinking a couple of gallons of water if you haven't eaten, that's not really That's not really that can be dangerous. So I've toned that down a little bit, but making sure you're hydrated from within is very important. I like to be warm in the whole body. Like right before, I'll do some push-ups or just jog on the spot. Or a very common exercise for singers is to like blow in a straw, like into a bottle of water. That really helps, creates this vacuum in your or not vacuum but pressure in your this space where your vocal cords are. So playing the clarinet, yeah, is actually a very good way of warming up.
Wow.
But except everybody else is not necessarily sharing that that point of view, but because I'm really that good a clarinet player.
Hey, whatever it takes. So,
Yeah.
Roy, it's no secret that you got burned out and you decided to step away in 2011. So, just what was going on, if you don't mind just summarizing? Was there just too much travel?
Yeah,
Yeah.
everything. Too much travel, too much work. I had my first kids, got married, and I was pretty much falling into every pit there was. I really found, and this whole character that I was creating sort of was very different from the person that I was and wanted to be at home. So and those two characters sort of like pulled farther and farther from each other, and that whole thing just tore me apart. I wasn't really present when I was at home either. Like when I come back from a 6 week tour, I'll just kick my shoes off and sit right down on the PC and work on something, and it was not good. So, and I got mentally sick. That summer of 2010, I had like a period of 5 6 weeks where I literally did not sleep. Maybe like, I mean, a little bit, of course, but there were so many nights that I did not sleep at all, just wandered around the house and worrying about everything and nothing.
So, I know in retirement you joined a church and you began singing in the choir. And have you always been religious, or was that something that you saw after you kind of took a break?
No, that was. I mean, religious. Depends on how you. I mean, what you mean by religious? How you define that? But I've always been occupied with the big questions and also spiritual things. I mean, those kind of things have always fascinated me. But there were some really weird things that happened to me in connection with me being, at my lowest low ever, in 2010. And that would really, I mean, obviously I was not, I was really mentally ill at that point. But I mean, we experienced things. I mean, I experienced things that other people experienced together with me, and the timing of things were really awkward. And I mean, whatever that was, it definitely made me completely change my mind on the whole issue. Is there a world? Is there something out there that we can't see that affects us? I'm positive about that. And I still have to sit down and pinch myself in the arm and just remind myself that's the things that happened.
Right.
I mean, some of those things people surely will say are coincidence. Some will say that I just imagined it. Some people will say that, uh, some people won't even believe. But for me, it was very, very clear. And yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. That doesn't mean that that completely changed my life. I mean, it did, but it's not like, not like I was a whole new being all of a sudden. It's I still have things that I struggle with. It's not like you go from being a arrogant, sinful bastard to being an angel. It's a process, but I mean that all those things, having those things in mind for me as is definitely gradually changing me in my approach to other people, life in general, and then how I look at the time that I have left on this planet.
Well said. And this sort of leads perfectly into what I like to ask everybody. I was going to wait on it, but I'm just going to go
Mhm.
ahead and jump into it because you kind of already touched on it. Have you ever had an experience that you would consider supernatural or paranormal or something that you couldn't explain?
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm the type of person. I'm like before this, I was quite the opposite of what you would call a Christian or a believer of whatever faith. But some of the things that happened, not only to me but also together with others and to others around me, was like this whole spiritual thing was like bubbling around me at that point, and it was just weird. And I had said before that, there's for me to be a believer of any sort, there has to be like a bloody, heavy miracle. And there were some pretty hefty stuff that happened to us, and some of it is not really that cool to talk about because it's linked to things that I don't really want to,
Right.
don't really want to talk about. But yeah, there were some really weird stuff that happened that I mean I would not have changed if that had not been the case.
Just moving down the road, you returned to music in 2018, I believe. Did you just start to feel the itch again? And when you were rejoined Conception?
We actually Turin and Arvik, approached me, and I think it was in 2015,
Ah,
2016 already, with some songs that I went up to Oslo to tour. Was there at a hotel, and I he called me and asked me to come up and listen to some stuff that I'd been working on, and he played a couple of tracks, and I felt like, yeah, yeah, maybe it's time to get back in the ring and do this thing that I'm used to be pretty good at me. So yeah, I mean, I guess there was a certain itch, but I just really needed that break. I've never regretted quitting Camelot. I mean, I keep saying that Camelot was the best thing that ever happened to me, and but quitting was also at that time, at the stage I was personally, it was also the best thing. We started talking about getting back together, me and Tora, and look at writing some new stuff, and we did, and wonderful songs came out of that, and the ball just kept rolling until we decided to go ahead and produce a new record, in 2018, or I mean 2017. I guess we started in 2017.
so 2020, Roy, the pandemic rolls around. How did that affect what you had going on, and how did you keep busy when things sort of shut down?
It was the timing was really bad for Conception, that's for sure, because we had just released, or we were going to release, State of Deception, right? And we had this thing with the first crowdfunding campaign that we did with Pledge, right? Was super successful, and spirits were high, and things were going really well. But when we were going to have the money out, the thing went bankrupt. They've been in business for like 7, 8, 9 years. A very good and renowned company, and I don't know what went wrong. I heard some rumors that somebody paid themselves more than they should have, and maybe they spent too much money marketing or salaries to build the thing. Anyways, we only got about half of the money, and we still had, when you crowdfund, right? It's like people pay for a product that is not really there yet.
Right.
So we still had felt the obligation to fulfill our agreement, so to speak, with people that have bought our record that have not been produced yet. So we had to take up a big loan again, like we did when we did last Sunset back in the day. Produced My Dark Symphony with that money, and then we had a new crowdfunding campaign. Went really well too, and we were going to go out and tour in 2020
Hmm.
and release the record, right? And right when we release it, and we're supposed to go out and promote the album, the whole world shuts down due to the pandemic. So I mean, We just sat there like, what the heck? But that's it's really a good thing to see that we managed to get through that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I guess that proved something that that didn't none of those two incidents broke our backs.
So since now things are kind of rolling again, do you guys have plans to revamp the tour or head out on the road or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean well again to answer the question you asked, the during the pandemic, we didn't really. I mean, we the business, like running your own record company, is a lot of work. Maybe a little bit more than we thought to begin with. But I mean, that's been a lot of work. Not that we do everything ourselves, of course, but in just I mean, we do a lot on our own, but we also hire people in, and but you really got to have your shit together, to do something like that. And it takes a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a lot of energy and goodwill and all that. But after a half year into the pandemic, one thing that struck me was I was really like being not having people around me was really bothering me, after a while. Being a musician, at least in the constellation that we have here, also with Kamelot is a quite lonesome job, right? Because I'm here and Tori lives in Stockholm. The other guys live in a totally different place in Norway. So this friend of mine asked me if I could, step in as a teacher. She knew that I'd been teaching a few years back, and that's asked me if I could step in as a substitute at this school, like not too far from me. So I did that. I wasn't really looking forward to it, and but it was such a joy just having all these kids and all these people around me again. Like I just felt my very being was it was I just asked them, is there anything more I can do? And I've been there up till last Friday. Now I'm not, but now everything is open again, and I'm going to concentrate more on music now. So I'm not going to start up again this autumn. So that's what I've been, that's one of the things I've been busy with along, having a family, and all the work that comes along with running a band the way we do it.
Were you teaching music or were you just teaching general?
Mainly music, yeah,
Gotcha.
music and English and uh, science actually. But they put me in whatever class between fourth grade and 10th grade.
So, Roy, what is the best concert that you've seen as a fan?
Ooh, yeah, that's also a difficult one. I really have a hard time grading, those art experiences. But I don't know. I remember when we opened up for Metallica back in must have been 2008, 2009 in Holland. Slipknot played after us, and our sound engineer or the promoter took us up in the tower, where the soundboard is,
Yeah.
and I got to see Slipknot from there. That was a really cool experience. But I mean, yeah, but I can have a
20 more answers.
there's yeah, exactly. I mean, I can have you know out of body experiences in a tiny jazz club for that matter. It's like
Yeah.
it hard to grade them.
Since you mentioned that, sorry to interrupt you, but I get in this conversation with European fans and American fans. You may have a European band that plays at Wacken and playing in front of thousands of people, but the same band will come to the United States and maybe play a bar that maybe has 1,000 or 2,000 people. I prefer the more intimate bar experience. As a performer, do you have a preference?
I definitely prefer the like. There's nothing like a small, tight, sweaty club gig. That's probably my favorite. Like really, I don't know what it is, but that's something special. I guess it has to do with like when you play, at least when you play these big festivals, the crowd just becomes this homogenous mass. You feel, and the distance, of course, is also there. But yeah, I guess you connect better. I do, anyways, with people at club gigs.
Out of your entire career, Conception or Camelot, what have you, what would you say is the most challenging single project that you've worked on? Is there one you lost sleep over? Be it an album or a specific song or whatever.
I was having a hard time with poetry for the poison, but not really. But that has to do with that was our seventh album, I think, and I was just getting so. But that also had to do with me being worn out and mentally not really there, because I was starting to feel that I while I was working on the Great Pandemonium, I just had this very strong feeling that this would be my last album. Like really, yeah. I just had a hard time with myself at that point. But I normally, I mean, there's two things that make this job great, in my opinion. That is the creative process, like making the music and recording it too. I love being in the studio, and presenting the stuff live, in front of an audience. So I generally love being in the studio and working on new music.
Well, Roy, I'm not going to keep you all afternoon here, so I guess just to put a bow on the interview and everything, what's on the horizon for you that you can share?
Right now we're I mean, there's quite a few things, but one of the reasons I'm not teaching anymore, like one of the reasons I quit now, is I really want to get that solo thing going. Like I I was sure that I was gonna, go ahead and do that when the pandemic started, but then again, I just did not have the I just couldn't sit here alone, like, and work on a solo project, when you're feel the need to see people in the flesh, like already, that was not an option. So that's something that hindered me from that. So that's one thing. There's conception, of course, live stuff, new writing sessions, and a lot of things really. Yeah, I'm going to spend more time with my family. The thing is, the last year has been so busy that that I feel I felt that like when you have a lot of work to do, it's very easy to make family. Um, that's the one thing that you can postpone. Like you can which is not really good. I want to be there for my kids and help them with school, and I want to do things at home with the house, and
Just be dad,
want to work out. I want to, yeah. I want to just have a less busy life, and I want to do some new stuff. So yeah.
I hope that happens for you.
Yeah.
Just before I cut you loose, Roy, if you don't mind, can you just give me a quick, this is Roy Khan, and you're listening to Monsters, Madness, and Magic for a little quick radio style plug.
Hey, this is Roy Khan, and you're listening to Monsters, Madness, and Magic. See you guys.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure to get a chat with you, man. I'll once I get this
My pleasure.
posted, I'll send it down to
Cool.
you.
Cool.
You have a good rest of your day,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you. You too. Thanks.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.